A nomination. Do we have a second? All right, let's go ahead and have a vote. Aye. That is great.
Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay. This evening, we've got one business item, and it is a administrative item. And so we will have a public meeting, but we will not have public testimony per se. But the public meeting was posted, and we followed all of the criteria for that. So our first item is Spring Heights Development Site Plan and Preliminary Plan, plat located at 2409 North Woodland Road, or Redwood Road. Murray Beaumont is the applicant, and we've got Austin, who's going to make the presentation tonight. So Austin, we'll turn it over to you.
It's working. Testing.
There we go.
There we go. And let's make sure, I don't think my clicker's working, so do I have to flip a switch? There we go. Let's just, okay, it's working now. Okay, thank you. Yes, so this is Spring Heights. This is a development, as you can see here, approximately 2500 North Redwood Road. Marty Beaumont is the applicant. We have him here tonight. If you'd like to come up, bud, come up here and sit, just in case there are any questions. And so this property, we'll just go to the map here. It's basically the northernmost part of the city. So just think as you're coming into the city on Redwood Road, just south of like 2100 where they're doing all that construction, that's where it is. It's right on the right-hand side there. So this parcel, it's interesting because it has two different zoning classifications on it. So the front part of the parcel What you see on the screen there, or the right-hand side of it is red, meaning regional commercial, and then the left-hand side or the west side is office warehouse. So it has two different zones on the property, and the applicant is proposing to, the uses that they're proposing fit in each of those zones. So this is the preliminary plat that they've submitted. It is a little bit different than a normal plat because they do have some easements that run through the middle of the property rather than around the perimeter. But they've worked that out with engineering, and it works. This is the site plan. You can see that so to understand the site a little bit better, it's actually kind of tiered. So Redwood Road is kind of lower, and then the first part of the property where the regional commercial is above Redwood Road, and then the office warehouses are up even higher than that. So it kind of goes with the terrain. And so what you're seeing here on the screen, at the top of the screen, that's the east or right adjacent to Redwood Road, and those two smaller buildings that you're seeing there, those are the commercial buildings. Their site plan meets our code requirements, except for one thing, the parking is insufficient on the flex buildings, and so they're requesting a deviation from the parking standard. Our code does allow that, so they can actually request up to a 25% reduction. The reduction that they're showing here is 16%, so it is within the allowed amount, but it does have to be approved by the city council. These are some elevations. So these are the buildings closer to Redwood Road. These are retail buildings. This is building A. You can see some perspectives of the building here. And then the materials that they're using are up in the top right of the screen. And then this is building B. Similar looking, but they did go with different materials. Palette here, slightly different. And then here are the elevations for that. And the design does meet our design criteria. It should be noted that this is also in the gateway overlay, so they did have to meet those gateway overlay requirements. And then further to the west, we have the flex buildings or office warehouse buildings. So these are really long buildings. So the buildings are so long that basically, I couldn't fit all of one side of the building on one row here. So you're basically seeing what it looks like, three of these are one side of the building. But it does meet our architectural requirements. And then on the one side, they do have the loading docks. You can see they've kind of added some architectural elements in there, like different colored materials to kind of break it up. So they're still following our code. On all sides of the building, they've incorporated design elements. And then, and the material palette you can see at the top there. And then this is building B, very similar to building A, same materials, slightly different layout of the building, but and then they've submitted a landscape plan. This landscape plan does meet our code requirements. They've added some additional elements to meet our gateway overlay. So they do show benches and some streetscaping kind of down there near Redwood Road. The other thing I would like to point out on here is, so at the bottom of the screen, which is on the west side of the property, up above, so there's a large retaining wall there. And then on top of that, they're going to be building a trail. And so that's a requirement that they have in the development agreement and also in the general plan. And so they will be installing that, landscaping it. It's shown here on the plans. And then another thing to point out here is, so our city standards and details do call for kind of a meandering pathway along Redwood Road, but because there's just not enough ground there along Redwood Road to meander the sidewalk, they just had to go with the straight design. So that's what they're showing here. But just wanted to point that out. And then up above where I was just talking about where the trail is, there's actually a canal that would be underneath. That's already been piped. but it will be underneath where that trail is. And so they're working with the canal company, and that will all be off-site. They're working out kind of some boundary issues with the property to the west and they'll have that all resolved via deeds. And this whole property actually does have they have some unique circumstances that they're working out. So to the north, they have that's where the city boundary line is between Lehigh and Saratoga Springs. And so they're going to be adjusting the boundary line, their property boundary line, to match with the city boundary line. So it'll be the same. And then to the south is Alpine School District. They've worked with Alpine School District to have that road that accesses the property. Let me go back to the site plan. Or maybe I guess it's kind of under that table there, but that's the road, the main access off of Redwood Road. So they've worked with Alpine School District, and they do have a storm drain pond that's actually also located on the Alpine School District property, but is related to this property. And then they've also worked with UDOT to the east. So they have a lot of boundary issues that they've had to clear up, but we've been working with the developer, and they've been keeping us up to date on that progress and getting all those proper approvals. So staff does recommend approval of this with the conditions found here in the staff report.
Thank you, Austin. Any comments you'd like to, Marty, to make at this time?
Is this working? It's flashing, so maybe it is. I'll talk loud, but no, we're excited to be in Saratoga Springs. We've been working on the site for a long time now. It just seems like there's always something new. Boundary issues have been, thank you, that works now. Boundary issues have been fun on every side of this property. In order to get access, we had to acquire and work with the Alpine School District to be able to even construct an access on the south end. It is a planned signalized intersection in the future. And so we acquired property to get that access in. In the north boundary, we had to adjust to the city boundary because our property line extended over that. West boundary is the canal, pipe the canal, a lot of off-site trail work, but we're excited that we're getting to this point to where we can get moving on this project. We think it's a great, great location in Saratoga Springs, and we're excited to be part of the city here. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about any part of it.
Good. We'll open the dais up to hear any comments or questions from members of the commission. So we'll go ahead. Anyone that would like to ask questions or comments, feel free. Doug?
Yeah, thank you. I really like this plan. Looks great. I was just wondering if you could talk about the 16% in reduction of parking, and that's something that we constantly are concerned about, and making sure that there's enough parking. And so what is different about this that would probably make it that 16% less parking would be okay?
I can respond.
It's on.
There we go.
That a little bit, but they're going to be providing a parking study. So prior to city council, they weren't able to have it ready for this meeting, but it will be ready for city council. So they should have a parking study to kind of show that what they're proposing works.
So every city is different, right? We have 14 million square foot of this product throughout our portfolio, throughout the United States. Springville, Pleasant Grove, Marriott-Slaterville, all of them have a similar number of parking stalls as what it's being proposed here in Saratoga Springs. However, your ordinances require a little bit more parking than what we're typically installing in those. I think the interesting thing of this type of product is the different uses that we get in a flex building, and how much is typically they're really trying to restrict the amount of office, because the warehousing in the back of it is usually a priority for a lot of the tenants that come in rent in this type of space. So even right now, the parking count has assumed a 50-50 split, 50% office, 50% warehouse, which is a way high
number for us. Our typical split is probably in the 35-65 because the office space typically is much smaller than the warehouse space in the back. And that's one of the things we'll be working with as we look through the parking study to make some recommendations on what that parking number should be. Your ordinance requires 4 per 1,000 square foot for office and 1 per 1,000 square foot for warehouse. And we just want to make sure that we're on the right pathway, I guess, to be able to meet that ordinance or ask for the reduction from the city council and get that approved based on that. The one thing that's unique, and I was talking to Austin about this, is that there isn't a current tenant plan. These are spec buildings, these are open buildings, and we'll come in and build out all of the walls that would create the space for each of the tenants. And there may be 10 different tenants in each of these buildings when we all get said and done. So the actual type of use and the actual parking numbers are somewhat arbitrary at this point until we actually get tenants that come in, and of course they're permitted in the zone and can be at those locations, but then they'll, depending on how we build out every one of those spaces, is going to determine on how much is actually needed for their parking. So, and that's one of the problems you probably had is depending on who the tenant is that comes in and rents a space, some have more needs, some have less. We feel like with all of our experience in this type of building that we're comfortable that we have adequate parking for the uses that we typically see in there. Again, we don't know if it'll be totally different here in Saratoga Springs. We expect it to be about the same and feel pretty comfortable that we can hit the parking needs for those buildings.
Thank you. So Austin, how would that impact the motion made, being that we're not making a motion? I mean, isn't the motion in support of a 16% reduction in parking, and yet we don't have the study? So how do we do that?
Yeah, so, I mean, the draft motion that we have here up on the screen, it does just say that the condition that it be approved with the 16% reduction as proposed. We could add a little bit onto that, that the parking study confirms that works for the site or something to that effect.
So conditional upon our recommendation, conditional on the study.
Supporting the amount of parking shown. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other comments or questions? Rachel?
Yeah, so phase 2 is, about how far out will phase 2 come in?
Point comes, there we go. So normally we would actually build out this entire site. As you can see, if you look at phase 2, that picture, there's a big encroachment by UDOT. In 2008, when they widened Redwood Road, they purchased property to be able to not have to retain the roadway. And so they acquired that. You can see this piece that they acquired back into the property. And we've just, in fact, last week have finished the appraisal for UDOT. It's going through the surplus property process to get approval to surplus it, and then we would acquire it. So the appraisal's been done. As far as we know, all staff has recommended that. So because of that, we didn't want to come in and propose something that excluded that area, yet we didn't have the final on that with UDOT. We're getting really close, and it probably just matters how fast all of this builds out and how it leases up and the interest in things as far as how we'll move forward to phase 2. But again, originally, if we owned that, we probably would have just done all 17 months for the site plan approval. But because of that, we've held off. And we have some concepts that we've shown the city of if we don't get the property, there'll be 2 more retail buildings. If we do get the property, there'll be 3 more buildings. So again, we've kind of got options to go any direction that we want on that. But yeah, it's all dependent on UDOT surplusing that, and so we can move forward. Once they make a decision, then making a decision on when to move forward on that.
So based on your preliminary plans, do you anticipate having any parking issues?
We don't. No, I
So
think,
it would have the correct stalls?
yeah, all of the retail parks to the normal standards and to what our standards are. for development, and so we feel pretty comfortable. Is that your question? Sorry.
Yeah,
feel
I'm just looking at, like, I quite frankly don't want to leave this meeting and get stoned by the residents for approving smaller parking. Because that is a huge issue here.
Yeah, one thing to point out is, so these retail buildings actually have they have they have more parking than they need. So,
Where are they at?
let's see, let me just. So they're required 51 stalls and they have 90. So they have quite a bit of extra parking down there.
Almost
Yeah,
double.
Yeah.
So if we were combining the parking for both of them, they would meet the requirements.
Yeah, so the problem with that is our code has a distance requirement, so you have to have parking so many feet from an entrance to a building.
Okay,
And so that's why, unfortunately, they can't count that extra retail parking for the flex buildings.
okay. Like, you really should
But I
have
mean,
just,
technically, yeah.
that would have just, we would have just been like, cool, great. Okay, that's it then, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Let's see. Jeff?
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and take Commissioner Ken Kilgore's question and ask if you intend to comply with all of the requirements inside here, but I noticed there's a couple that do not comply, specifically regarding parking stalls. So I wanted to bring up that question. What is the issue with the parking stalls not complying, and is that an issue that will be fixed, or is that another issue that you're asking to be waived?
We've already actually fixed that on our next submittal of our site plan. So it's just on 2 stalls. We had 11 instead of 10 that were allowed. That's already been revised on our site plan. So the next submittal that they'll get, it's already on my desk from my engineers. So not a problem. We've already addressed that issue.
Excellent. So it sounds like you will comply with everything as long as you get the parking excused.
Yep.
Excellent. And then I think what Rachel was getting at was you mentioned that you have this same plan in lots of different areas. Have you had any parking issues in any of those other areas?
We haven't. We've been able to meet all the needs with those areas. So again, we're a national company, so we kind of do this throughout the United States. But here in Utah, it depends on the use that is allowed in the building. And so if you get a gymnasium or a trampoline park or things, that's maybe where you're seeing that. This has a little bit lower roof. Not that it couldn't, I guess, allow it, but maybe it's not quite as high of a roof as a warehouse that you might see in a trampoline park. But anyway, so it just depends on the type of use of the tenants that come in and lease. That really depends on how much parking needs are. So
That's all I had. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Jeff. Doug?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to something else. Could you just take real short, just to explain the canal and the issue there with the canal
Yeah, let me go ahead and go to this diagram.
and the study and so forth?
Yeah, so this diagram here shows the canal on the top here, kind of in that grayish, and then you could see the subdivisions down at the bottom, which would be to the west up on top of the hill there. So Harvest Hills is to the west. This is an old canal that used to run through here. The canal was having some, it was leaking, so the ground was kind of saturated in this area. And so in order for them to make this a viable site to build on, they did have to pipe it. And so, which is good for the canal because it was losing a lot of water anyway. So they piped that. It's actually currently piped right now. If you were to go visit the site, you would see that it's piped. And so the tricky part about this canal is that it has an old document that goes back almost more than 100 years, I think. And so that document back in the days, they had kind of crude methods of how they would measure. And so the boundary on that is kind of, it's unclear. And so what St. John Properties is trying to do is they're trying to clear that up. And so they've been talking with the canal company. Initially, there were some conversations with the HOAs of these different subdivisions that are adjacent. But basically, they've put together some legal documents to kind of clarify whose property that canal is on. And then once they deed all the property as proposed, the canal will fall outside of their plat boundaries, and it will be deeded to the canal company. And so, however, that does not. There was a development agreement that was put together several years ago that does obligate them to landscape and put a trail on top of the canal. So they do have to do that as part of that development agreement. But the property, question of property is being resolved through deeds. And so hopefully does that answer your question?
It doesn't. That wouldn't stop us from moving forward in any way, does it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Doug. Rachel?
Who's going to be maintaining that once it's put in if they're not keeping the property?
Yeah, that's a good
Because the
question.
canal
So
company
they're
doesn't-
still responsible for maintaining it.
Okay.
That's also in the agreement.
Can we just make sure that makes it like for sure into the meeting minutes and the agreement? Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Virginia?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. This is exciting and looks like it's great development to bring to our city. My question pertains to there's a note here that documentation is needed from Alpine School District regarding the South Road. I'm just wondering if we could get some more information on that, if there are any anticipated roadblocks or any problems that could occur with that South Road and what that documentation will entail.
It's all done and recorded now, so that's a preliminary. We got it recorded about 2 weeks ago with the school district, and staff just hasn't seen the recorded documents, but everything's done and recorded. There's no issues with the school district.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Any other questions or comments? Given that, I had a list of questions, but every single one was addressed, so right on. The one thing that had to comply is working with the fire marshal up in that one corner. Can you just update us as to the fire hazard that could be there?
I honestly have no clue what that comment means, but I've looked at it. I understand what it means because it is on your maps as a side location, and it's for about 200 feet, and it is steep. But the fire marshal, I'm not exactly sure how I do that study because he has access from the trail. He's going to have access from all the roads right to that location that's 50 feet on our property. So to me, I'm not exactly sure what, I know I need to provide it before we can get a building permit. That's, I think, what the comment is saying. We need to get with the fire marshal and do that. I don't know what he's going to need. So we'll plan on trying to address that with the fire marshal. I honestly don't see how, this isn't like a big expansive area. It's literally 50 feet on our property that it encroaches, so.
I was gonna say, it's not gonna be difficult for them to do that. It's just a matter that we don't have the report yet. We need to check it off. The code asks for it, so we just need to check it off. But where there's asphalt around there and they are doing the retaining wall, they're not gonna have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I spoke with the fire marshal last week, and he's happy with the placement of the fire hydrants. He did want to know where the location of the fire riser rooms were, and I think we were able to get that information. So I think he's good with the plan, but they just need to get that document to us so we can check that box off.
Okay. Well, I was very, as others have indicated, I'm very pleased with the fullness of the application. Everything can comply, and there were just the two areas that really need to be addressed, and they seem to have been addressed. So any other comments before we take a motion? Okay, let's, someone like to make a motion?
I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for approval of the recommended of the requested preliminary plot and site plan for the Spring Heights located at approximately 2500 North Redwood Road with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you. A second, Jack?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And so we are able to send this to City Council with an approval from the Planning Commission. Thank you so very much, Austin and Marty. Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to the next area is approval of the minutes. And so minutes are a part of your packet. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes from the October 10th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you, Rachel. A second?
I'll-
Thank you, Jack. We have the minutes from the October 10th, 2024. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes pass unanimously. We're to that point where we're going to have reports. Any reports from commissioners? Hearing none, let's go over to the director's report. Sarah?
Okay, great. I have a few items. You received an email just reminding you that your annual training is due by the end of the year. So 12 meetings do count. All of you would meet that. And then anybody who was able to attend when Rulon presented the Open and Public Meetings Act, that counts. And then you would need 2 more hours. If you missed that one, there's some YouTube links here anyhow. So we handed out a paper copy, and then we also emailed this mostly to your city emails. So we did have a question about communication preferences. As you'll notice, we've had several meetings in a row where we're missing commission members, and it's always important that we have a quorum. And then we've been emailing the city email addresses, but sometimes we don't get a response. I just wondered what's your preferred communication as far as attendance goes?
I'll start.
Like text or personal email or city email?
You can text or email my bank.
Oh,
email.
okay, you're, okay.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you, Jack. Any other?
Yeah, you can text or my personal email, but I got locked out of my city email, and tech support is not very nice.
Oh, okay.
If he's available, he might be able to help me sometime.
And I would-
Virginia?
Yeah,
Our tech support is an acquired taste, so just.
He's great. He's a great guy. Great. He's helped me a lot of times.
Communication is just very blunt, but yeah.
Sorry he has to keep help. I feel like an 82-year-old woman when I, like,
It's okay, I ask him all sorts of questions that he laughs at me about, so it's fine.
Doug?
scared.
Yeah, a text is great. Personal email is fine. I do check the city one, but I get locked out about every 6 months because I can't find my password. So now I have it written right in an unsecure place so I can find it.
Okay.
Okay, am I the only one that struggles with that?
No, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this commission job, but that keeping up and trying to keep my
Yeah.
email address just
Email.
caused me to go,
They changed that. You have to change your password.
it really is, it just really is a pain.
It really
You don't
is
use
the
it
worst
enough.
part of it. It is. It really is the worst part of being on the commission.
Just
I don't
because
know.
you don't really use it, okay.
No, I would
That's-
far rather just throw it out and let us just personal because
That's
it
good
is.
for me to know. Let me double check if we
Sorry.
can, I don't know if we can do that, but let me check if we can do that. If everybody's in agreement that you'd rather use your personal emails, let me check if we're allowed to. I don't know if there's a a Records Act issue or anything, but if not, I'll find out. I'll look
What,
into
Rulon?
that.
This is a hard no.
If you guys are using your personal emails for official government records, like you're getting emails from the public there, those would be open to ground, and you guys have to provide your personal emails that relate to that request, and there's a risk of that.
What if we just use it for sending the packet and the calendar invite and the communication on attendance?
That'd probably be fine, but yeah, you wouldn't want them to on maintaining the city email for that stuff, just so that way Kevin Carpenter is able to pull those from the database.
Yeah.
Because if not, then we would have to send you the grandma. You guys would technically be responsible for providing that to us, to provide the grandma request. But yeah, if it's just a meeting invite or something, that shouldn't be.
I wonder if we can have a generic planning commissioner email that actually goes to staff,
Yeah, it's possible.
that we then forward
Yeah,
to.
we talk to, yeah, like Mark.
So let me look and see what we're allowed to do. If we're allowed to do something else, I think that seems to be the preference, but let me find out and I'll, get back to you on that. So, okay, that sounds good. But nobody minds a text or a personal
No,
email?
that's fine.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And then, yeah, of course, if you can't make it, let us know. That's, the biggest thing is we just want to make sure we have a quorum, so.
Yeah.
And everybody's been good about that, but when we get, two, then we just want to reach out and make sure. So,
Thank you.
okay, so I had that, and then, so let's see, training, communication, a city email. I will follow up on whether or not it's needed and if we can do something else. Meaning it is needed, but if we can do it a different way. And then I'll just give you a recap on items that were recently approved. The most recent city council meeting was October 15th, and they approved the Lakeview Academy rezone from agriculture to institutional civic. They approved the Northern Frontier Lot 3 site plan. They approved a comprehensive sign code update. You had actually seen that a couple months ago. It just took a while to get through the council because of their busy meeting schedules. And then they also approved a change to the code related to the rear elevations if it was obscured by topography, but they only wanted that to be specific to the IC zone. And then we have updated our planning fee schedule. A lot of our fees went up, a few of them went down. So we based it on actual time. We've been tracking our time for quite some time to gather data, and we updated our fee schedule. But as a result, most of the planning fees went up. So not that you'll hear about that or know about that, but that's just something that went through. And then the next meeting will be, let's see here, November 14th. And at the moment, we have 3 items. There may be more by the time it comes, so. That's it for
Thank
me.
you, Sarah. There's no closed session.
Nope.
Right? And so we will dismiss our meeting at 6:37. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.